Can you not? Greetings, friends. NPRlo here. Still trying to go easy on my voice, so things are going to be a little soft and quiet today. Hope that's all right. Hopefully, you've got a nice warm mug of tea handy. Some light sprinkling rain outside. Recommended, but not necessary. So, with a re release like this, it's always hard to know how much you're supposed to review the actual games. You know, like it's Mario Galaxy. One, we already got a version of the first game a couple years ago. But then even apart from that, it's Mario Galaxy. These are such iconic games. They've already been talked about to death. Am I really reviewing two of the greatest platformers ever right here in this video just because they're coming to Switch? The kind of thing I could spend just hours and hours and hours on. So I don't know, I guess we'll just touch on the games themselves real quick. To be completely honest, I am not as much of a fan of these games as most people. I think that first impressionable playthrough, when they came out, they didn't hit me the way that I was hoping. That move away from more open sandbox Mario to more linear Mario, it didn't really quite sit right with me. The feel wasn't quite there. So they didn't catch me at that critical time, but I did really enjoy them, and actually over the years I have only warmed up to them more and more and more. I absolutely believe that even if linear Mario doesn't engage me in quite the same way, it is probably just a better and more pure version of Mario, and it makes for way more consistent experiences. 64 and Sunshine were great, but how much of my playtime is spent just kind of fumbling around with the controls, engaging with some of the less fun challenges. Mario Galaxy was when Nintendo really started to understand how to put Mario in a 3D space and how to design levels around him and his abilities. It's basically when Mario games became just good. I said that in 2020, the 3D All-Stars collection. It's when Mario became just good. And I don't mean only good. I mean only good. Almost no downtime, almost no frustration. It's just fun. Constantly. It's just well-designed platforming the whole entire way through. It's kind of like the difference between having your activities ranging wildly from A's to F's, going to just consistent B the whole way through. You know what I mean? That's not to say I give the games a B. You know what I'm saying? It's an analogy. So yeah, I really cannot deny that these games are so incredibly, incredibly well designed. And they also continue to grow on me because of the overall space theme. I think I only like space more and more the further along I go in life. And so every time I return to these games, I don't know, I love them a little bit more just because it's space. It's cool. It's Mario in space. It's amazing. I do have some quibbles with these games. I do think that out of all of the 3D games, Mario has never been more stiff than he is here. The movement feels a little bit stiff and stilted. The moveset is very limited, especially coming off of Sunshine. It was a very, very different experience. Mario just cannot do as much. It's not a terrible thing, and I understand why they did it. I think it's because in these games, so much more of the experience is about the stuff around Mario, putting Mario in these situations where he's got all of these various power-ups play a really, really big part in these games. And then, of course, just the gravity mechanic itself. So I feel like they kind of had to just sort of rein in his overall abilities and movement a little bit. So I get it, and maybe it was necessary, but I counted against the game at least a little bit. I love the games where his moveset is very just expressive and fluid and feels a lot more organic, And then other little things, the spinning. I'm always iffy on the spinning. I may just be spoiled by the more recent games, throwing Cappy and you get this huge range, whereas when you're spinning and you're trying to hit an enemy and the range of the attack is very small and it kind of halts your momentum. So every time I pick up the games again, there's always this learning period where it's I'm trying to hit this enemy, this basic enemy, and I spin too early or too late or something, and it's a lot better now that it's been mapped to a button. Way, way, way better. But even that, I'm just still a little on the very idea of the spinning. It's nice that you can use it to help control your movement in the air. But as far as like using it for an attack, there's just something kind of sluggish about it to me. Then I do think a lot of the bosses are maybe a little bit too easy. Like they're so cool that you just want them to last a lot longer, but they're behind you in like 2 seconds. And then the gravity mechanic can sometimes be annoying. I think there are like sometimes when I get a little bit tired of it, or like a little tired, you know, like the issues that it presents are not huge. They are not too plentiful, but they are there. You get the weird little thing where, like, you know, he spins around when you hold the control stick in one way. It can get a little bit confusing or awkward or whatever. And then probably one of my biggest problems with these games is the reliance on pointer controls. It's a cool idea, but like, as I'm always talking about, I like gimmicks less and less and less and less and less. And so like, here are 2 just absolute beloved classics that are brought down by this need. They're just more difficult to play than they need to be. You know, every time they re-release them, okay, well, how are we doing the controls? So now you got to use the gyro, because we don't have a Wii remote anymore. So you got to always be tilting the control around and being mindful of the cursor. And I got to like constantly recalibrate the cursor, which is annoying. So it is another thing where I do kind of count it against the games. But that's enough quibbles, because overall, Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, they really are just terrific. I mean, like, just that, the scope, the pure spectacle of it. Mario going up into space, and its planets and galaxies and universes. Like, what an incredible and completely unexpected theme for a Mario game. I think even after all these years, I'm still kind of surprised that they did that. And it's so cool because just like thematically it's great, but then that theming informs the gameplay so dramatically. The gravity mechanic isn't perfect, but it's pretty darn close to it. Like it just has such a huge impact on the design, exploring these 3D spaces, and there's so many spheres, you know, like you're so often on like a spherical shape and running around, or like it's a cylinder or a different shape, just all of these different spaces and how the gravity works. It's just such an interesting way to do it. We're so used to exploring these flat planes with regular gravity. This really taps into a different kind of part of your brain. And then because it's space, it's all, you know, black holes and comets and just, I don't know, just like rising suns shining over horizons. Just there's so many little elements here that the space theme just kind of feeds into. They play with it so well. The creatures are weird. You know, Mario's always got like fun baddies to fight, but here, maybe they're just like a little bit more weird than usual. And even if I complain about some of the bosses being too easy, that complaint arises from a place of love, because I also believe that Galaxy 1 in particular is when Mario bosses got good. It's when they got really good. It's just like the level design. This was when they just, I don't know, they had some sort of aha moment where suddenly Mario bosses didn't have as much like frustration. They were a lot more just like punchy and kind of, I guess cinematic is a word that you could use with their little cutscenes, and the gameplay is just so much more clean and intuitive. You're not like dealing with awkward hitboxes, you know, you're not like trying to like run around to the back of the thing so you can hit it or grab it, or fumbling with the controls. It's just like, nah, it's just like you gotta like hit the red part, or like hit the thing and bounce it back. It's just, it's so much more straightforward. And yeah, just a clean, nice experience. And then similarly, even if I gripe about the pointer controls, I cannot deny how unique they make the experience. There is something very satisfying about using the pointer to collect a whole bunch of star bits and having them fly. It's just like the sound effect, or it feels so good. And then there is still something at least a little bit novel about pointing a pointer like actively and grabbing a thing and having that like pull Mario along or something. So like, yeah, you know, even if I'm like kind of annoyed by the necessity, it does make the game unique, and uniqueness is cool at the end of the day, you know? And then of course you've got that storybook that the famous storybook. You know, even if the whole feel of these games was a little bit off for me because they were so much more linear, there was just less just natural exploration, which I really like. You know, I certainly can't deny that Rosalina's storybook did lend an incredible feel to these games. It really, well, you know, the first game, we'll talk about that in a bit. I don't know, it granted it a certain kind of atmosphere that really made the experience feel that much deeper. You know, I'll always go on about this stuff, how like you don't need a complicated story. You need just enough story, because even just something as simple as a little storybook, a handful of pages, a few words, can change like the context of the entire game, and that can have a humongous impact on how it feels to engage with it. You know, it's an imagination thing. So we're talking about both Galaxy games here, and so naturally that dreaded question arises: which one is better? It really is an incredibly hard question. And this is, I mean, I've never been better equipped to answer it, at least. This is the first time I've actually like sat down and played both side by side. When I first played Galaxy 2, I had a huge problem with the story. Obviously, it's just the same story again. It basically disregards the first game and just kind of tells it again. It's like, hey, let's do the same thing again, but less interesting. And the observatory in the first game was a far cry from a true hub world, but it was at least sort of kind of close, whereas 2 takes you back to like a world map. Oh, come on, like it's a 3D Mario. We don't need a world map. Oh, I hated that. However, again, like the more I play these games, and especially playing them next to each other, I do think that 2 might still be the better game. I think it might have better design. Overall, it just feels like a more refined experience. The design is so much tighter. It was already really tight in Galaxy 1. You know, that was when Nintendo really hit their stride with 3D Mario, but even then there was still something of a learning period, and Galaxy 2 is just like, oh, you got it. Like you got it. You know, there's no fluff at all. The intro is way shorter. I'm really recognizing that now. It really just throws you in and you start having fun, and you never stop. 2 does have probably even more reliance on pointer controls because of Yoshi, so that kind of is a bit of a negative point. But yeah, I don't know. I could just say that because of the story stuff, Galaxy 1 is closer to my heart. It hit me harder the first time I played it, but then Galaxy 2 is probably just more fun to play overall. So I don't know. There's probably never going to be a definitive answer to which one is better, because I will always just go back and forth in pros and cons. I mean, it's Galaxy 1 versus Galaxy 2 is basically Muppet Treasure Island versus Muppet Christmas Carol. I think that's probably a good way to look at it. Christmas Carol is probably a better movie. Treasure Island is probably a better Muppet movie. It's these, you know, it's these kinds of back and forth conversations that really never actually resolve. But ultimately, it doesn't matter, does it? Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 are both just super duper good Mario games. So let's finally get to these new versions. Both of them have a few new features. You've got assist mode, which is really cool. I know that's the kind of thing that a lot of people will just be like, whatever, who cares? That's not important. But like, you know, if you've ever actually tried to play games with really young kids, you recognize, oh no, this is the difference between some kids being able to play a game like at all or having to wait like 2 years. You know what I mean? It's very, very helpful. And then you've got the soundtracks, which is pretty cool. Like right there on the main menu. Like you boot up the game and immediately you can just like pull up the music. I think that's pretty nice. And then again, just like the 3D All-Stars release, you've got gyro aiming to replace the Wii pointer controls. It sounds like you can use the mouse, but I didn't try it, and I think you can only do it in 2-player or something. Seems a little weird, but whatever. Gyro works fine, even if it is a little annoying how often I have to like recalibrate it and just having to like pay attention to it at all. Obviously, it's less intuitive than just pointing my Wii remote at the screen, but it gets the job done fine. And if you're playing handheld, you can just like use touch or whatever. So, okay. Really, your main selling point is the upgraded visuals. And honestly, I was surprised here. The visuals have been upgraded a bit more than I expected. Naturally, the games are being rendered at a higher resolution. 3D All-Stars Collection on Switch 1. This is probably going to be pretty identical to that in terms of resolution. Good, clean 1080p, 4 times the resolution of the original. It's already a pretty big upgrade. But then it runs at native 4K on Switch 2, and looks great. It looks really, it's just an incredibly crisp image. I mean, now you're essentially looking at 16 times the resolution of the original. And yeah, I don't know. It looks great. It looks really smooth. You can just make out so much more detail. But it's not just that though. Surprisingly, Nintendo has indeed gone in and up-resed pretty much all of the textures. They've been improved a lot. The 3D All-Stars version of Galaxy 1, I think, mainly like emulated the game, or it might have been one of those things where it was like a kind of a mix of emulation and porting, but like for the most part it was just running the original game, a couple little tweaks here and there, but mostly running it at a higher resolution. But these are full-on ports. They have actually gone in and made actual changes to the games. They're essentially remasters. It's not a dramatic remaster. It's pretty subtle. They haven't changed anything about models, nothing really dramatic with the lighting or anything like that. But no, like really dramatically higher resolution textures. And it makes a really big difference. It really does. I mean, overall, it's still kind of subtle. But you compare it to the original, like side by side, and there's a world of difference. And it's the kind of thing where you start to see it the further you go, the more you are exposed to these various textures. You just start to see how sharp they are. And when you combine the sharper textures with the overall higher resolution on Switch 2, it just really makes for just a terrific image. And you know what? Playing both of these games side by side has really made me appreciate more than ever how much better Galaxy 2 looks. And I mean, it makes sense, they just had more time to refine the game and work on the art and all that stuff. And like, I could always tell that Galaxy 2 looked just at least a little bit better, just kind of cleaner. Like the cutscenes look better, just everything just looks a little bit better. But I really see it now. Like these versions of the games make it so clear. And you would think that if one looked rougher overall, then it would have more to gain from being touched up. But that's not really exactly how it works. I think sometimes when you see older games rendered at higher resolutions, it still looks great, but sometimes it can kind of reveal the flaws or some of the elements that maybe didn't age as well. You definitely get that a little bit with one here. You're like, okay, I'm definitely playing an older game here. But Galaxy 2 just looks incredible. Like the overall more refined visual quality just shines through. The renewed textures and the higher resolution do nothing but lift up the game and make it sometimes look almost modern, especially with the use of just like visual composition and color. You're in a high action scene and like you forget that you're playing a game that's nearly 20 years old. Like I really can't stress enough how great it looks running on Switch 2 on a 4K TV at least. And then finally, we've got the whole storybook thing, and this is another thing that surprised me. When they said that there were going to be new pages for the storybook, I assumed that they meant just like, I don't know, a couple, like a few, just a little bit of extra. And then when they said that the storybook was going to be in both games, I thought it was going to be the same storybook just in both games so that you could just access it whichever one that you're playing. But no, you've got like basically a whole new chapter for the storybook in one. And then Galaxy 2 has an entire new book with like 4 chapters in it. We got a new entire storybook that is unique to Super Mario Galaxy 2. It's crazy. I don't want to oversell it, and I'm definitely not going to give you any spoilers or anything, but I would say that this extra content delivers. I think the additions are quite impactful, and really against all odds. these actually do kind of deepen the canon. You know, like they were reluctant to put Miyamoto was reluctant to put the storybook in the game at all. And it's really awesome to see them not only like put a focus on it, but actually like really work with it more and give like there's a good amount of like lore-y kind of fan service in here. The storybook in Galaxy 2 in particular, it actually works to make the game's whole story setup less disappointing. Honestly, like it retroactively helps give Galaxy 2 some of its own unique identity and like a reason for existing and not just feeling like a just whatever rehash. So yeah, I don't know. Color me surprised. I found all of the new content really enjoyable and even revisiting the storybook at all, like that was great. I haven't actually like just sat down and, you know, read/watched through the whole thing in a long time. Maybe not even since I played Galaxy 1 for the first time. So that's good stuff. I really just forgot how great that is. So the price of these games or this bundle of games is always going to be the thing. I don't know if it's going to be this way the whole generation, if like every single Nintendo game that comes out, if the whole entire discussion is just going to be, is it worth it? Is it worth the price? Really, more than ever, I feel like it's not worth even talking about much here because like I don't know, there's just not really a point. Like everyone's asking if is it worth it? Is it worth it? But like there's no surprises here. Like you know exactly what you're getting. You are getting better looking versions of each of these games that you can play on the Switch. You know, little features here and there, OST, assist mode, all that stuff you can probably live without. The storybooks are definitely cool, but you can also just look that up on YouTube and be completely done with it forever. So you just gotta ask yourself, like, how much do you want the extra stuff? How much do you love these games? How inconvenient is it to play the originals? You know, like pull out the Wii remotes and find batteries for them. How much do you appreciate having a clearer image, or are you fine just playing the originals because you don't care about resolution? Like, I don't know. There's not a single person in this world who can tell you if it is worth it. It really, there just isn't. Again, there are no surprises here. You know exactly what you're getting, and it's at least nice that we've got the option to just buy Galaxy 2, because if you have the 3D All-Stars version of Galaxy 1, you know, then you just get Galaxy 2, and then like I said, with the visual upgrades, it makes Galaxy 2 look that much better. So you really wouldn't be missing out on too much if you just went straight for Galaxy 2. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, at the very least, I can say that Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 are very, very good games, and they've been given very, very new and convenient versions here for Switch and Switch 2. Thank you so much for watching, and please enjoy the rest of your day. Support for NPRLO comes from viewers like you. If you would like to make a tax-deductible donation, then you can't. Sorry, it's not something you can do. I mean, you could donate, but it's not going to be tax-deductible whatsoever.